Hello everyone, my name is Pravus, and welcome to a first look at Offworld Trading Company's first expansion, Jupiter's Forge. Please note that this is not a review video or the start of a new Let's Play, but rather a quick highlight of the new content that you can expect in the expansion and some of my first impressions. For a full playthrough of one of the campaigns, please click the link in the description. So in the past, we've seen a handful of DLC added into Offworld Trading Company, ranging from the new maps and resources of the Ceres initiative to the challenges of blue chip ventures in an effort to add new diversity and replayability into the game. Jupiter's Forge, as a full expansion, offers similar features as these DLCs, and then builds upon it in a pretty big way. The campaigns of the new expansion take place on Io, one of Jupiter's moons. It's an inhospitable wasteland riddled with volcanoes and lightly dusted in sulfur dioxide frost. Water is non-existent on the moon, and the basic resources necessary for human survival will be scarce. Furthermore, new planetary events will add an extra challenge, including radiation storms, sulfur frosts, landslides, and tremors that will deplete vital resources. For those of you who might have thought that Io will just be a reskinning of the planet Mars, let me assure you this is not the case. The economy will be extremely different to reflect the scarcity of basic resources, and you'll have to change your strategies accordingly. Of course, with a new environment comes new methods of manipulating that environment. Several key buildings, such as electrolysis reactors, water pumps, and wind turbines, are no longer feasible on Io and have been replaced. The ion collector, for example, filters the atmosphere and produces fuel at the cost of power. Solar condensers have been repurposed to break up the sulfur dioxide and extract breathable oxygen. Both resources are then combined in a water processor to produce water with a little trickle of power on the side. This is the only method of producing water on Io, which can then be used to grow food or cool your nuclear power plants, which you might recognize from the Ceres Initiative DLC. If you need silicon, iron, or uranium, then you can take advantage of the new basalt processing platforms, which are placed in the lava lakes scattered across the moon. Refining buildings, such as steel mills and chemical refineries, are still available as before, but obviously the rebalance of available resources will have an effect on those as well. From my experience, Io follows a completely different build order than Mars or Ceres. Whereas before you might have considered the development of electronics to be an ideal late-game industry, now you might find that the development of food is your top priority. But there's the added sense of urgency that you are consuming these valuable resources right from the beginning of the game. The pressure to develop these industries immediately is immense, but with limited claims at the beginning of a match, you're going to have to prioritize one way or the other. Choose the wrong path, and you might fall into a debt spiral of death. By the way, as a side note, the off-world market has also been replaced with a nifty space elevator, though as far as I can tell, it does the exact same thing. It's still a very lucrative late-game building with a ton of profit potential, it's just been reskinned, which is cool. Jupiter's Forge does more than just add a challenging new map to the game. You will also note that 2 new companies are staking their claim on Io, with new HQs available to reflect their playstyles. First, you have the Diadem Trust, which consumes steel, silicon, and glass to upgrade their elite HQ. This company has a strong focus on advanced late-game buildings, such as the Patent Lab and Optimization Centers. Given enough time unimpeded and the resources to operate these buildings, they can accrue some absurdly strong bonuses that will give them a key advantage the longer the game progresses. The second faction joining Offworld Trading Company is the Penrose Collective, formed after the reunification of Korea. This company uses aluminum, silicon, and electronics to upgrade their nomadic HQ, which gives them the slight advantage of requiring less refining buildings in the early game. They also start with a second HQ, that is to say, you place 2 small nomadic HQs on the map. This presents a couple of tactical options, where you can place your extra HQ on the resource nodes to create a strong early game stockpile and upgrade quickly, and/or you can space them apart to greatly reduce fuel consumption. They also start with a new black market feature called Claim Return, which offers an exceptional amount of flexibility as the game progresses. For instance, if another player uses an underground nuke on your valuable carbon quarry and it's no longer useful, you can just demolish the building, remove the claim, and place it elsewhere. Of the two new companies available in Jupiter's Forge, I think that the Penrose Collective is going to present the most strategic utility. This means a higher skill cap, but in the right hands, it could be extremely potent. The Diadem Trust, on the other hand, will start to snowball out of control. If they get a strong early foundation in key industries and are not sufficiently harassed by their opponents, they will likely dominate the late game through patents and raw efficiency. These companies also come paired with new CEOs, which have their own storylines available in the IO campaign for those who might be interested. For those of you who really want to get their science on, there are some new patents available on IO to better reflect the needs of the colonies. Transparent aluminum allows you to replace glass with aluminum when you construct new buildings, assuming that the aluminum is cheaper than the glass. It's similar to the water engine in that way and can be incredibly potent in the early game when upgrading your HQ if it requires glass. Speaking of the water engine, that's been replaced with the nuclear engine, since water isn't naturally available on IO. If uranium is cheaper than fuel, your ships will consume that instead. Geothermal borehole grants a small amount of power generation to all buildings adjacent to a geothermal vent, and also removes the building restrictions for geothermal tiles. Synthetic meat grants a passive production bonus to all greenhouse farms. It's similar to the bonuses that you would expect from the optimization center, but more powerful. On a world where water and food is scarce, this can be a sizable advantage. Lastly, liquid batteries removes the restrictions on your solar panels and solar condensers. That is to say, they are always on, day and night, greatly increasing their daily output, which can be a huge advantage. As if all of this wasn't exciting enough, there is one final feature added in Jupiter's Forge, and I'm very interested to see how it is received by the community. The Infinite Map Challenge adds a supposedly infinite number of skirmish maps where, if completed, you can compare your score on a leaderboard system. These maps get gradually more and more difficult and potentially could add a lot of longevity to the game, at least for those who like to be competitive. Personally, I think I would have preferred to see daily challenges added to the game with a special twist each day, but this could work just as well. Ultimately, I believe that Jupiter's Forge is the latest attempt by the developers to add more replayability to their game, as well as revitalize the multiplayer scene with a new set of challenges in the form of new maps, new technology, and new factions. The leaderboard feature in the Infinite Map Challenge is a pretty nice touch too. It's not attempting to reimagine or reboot the game with dumbed-down mechanics to appeal to a wider, yet less skilled audience, but rather increase the diversity so that players who are seeking a challenge might find a new home for the long term. If that's something you're interested in, then I would highly recommend checking the description of this video for a link to a campaign series that will begin on release, and view some gameplay. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope that it was informative. If you did enjoy this video, then I would ask you to consider hitting that like button, it really does help, and subscribe for my future content. My name is Pravus, and I will see you guys next time.